Nick Smith. Adventure level 11. Human. American.
Larry has not been to this city for quite a long time, York pointed out. He told me as such when I sought his guidance for the Wilder and the Summer Court.
Then shouldn't we be worried that he'll get lost? I asked.
No, Nash replied. He's an adult. One who's probably older than all of us combined. He knows what he's doing.
I nodded uncertainly as we continued down the main road and strove to put my worries about Larry from my mind, as the business district turned into a shopping district. This change was marked by a steep increase in crowd density, which made it more difficult to keep pace with York and Nash. Various restaurants, shops and offices lined the road. A few of them caught my eye as we passed, despite all of the people in the way. The first was a jewelry store that we had to stop near to allow a cart to pass. Rings, necklaces, earrings, and bracelets, encrusted with the largest and shiniest gems I'd ever seen, were on display. At first glance, it was a lavish display of wealth, but something felt off.
All silver and bronze, Nash chuckled. Guess the rumours of a gold shortage in these parts is true. That's a shame, York sighed. The malleability of gold is good for intricate enchantments and glyphs. I'd like to find out what could be applied to a golden ring with gems this size. The gems are probably magically enchanted. Does that have an impact on enchantments? No idea, but it would be wonderful to find out. Yeah, I bet. Don't you go wasting our hard-earned coin on your scientific ventures now. Bah, what good is gold if not to be used to satisfy one's whims? York chuckled and winked.
Nash met his mirth with a cold stare as we continued on our way. The next notable store was a weapons seller. What made it notable, though, was its lack of stock. The displays in the windows were completely empty, and a closer look at the interior as we passed showed that there weren't many items hanging on the walls either. That's probably not a good sign, right? I asked.
What isn't?
York turned to me with a raised eyebrow.
The almost empty weapon shop, probably, Nash said. I say that it depends. There's a bunch of reasons that a weapon shop could run out of inventory, and not all of them are impactful to the rest of us. For instance, if that Fae behind the counter just recently bought the store, it might have decided to get rid of the iron and steel inventory. Or maybe it's just that much more difficult to find good weapons made of other metals.
There was a Fae behind the counter? I asked.
Yup. I may be green, but elves never are, which means that was a Fae. Or maybe an archfey.
I glanced back with a new interest, but we had already moved on. Then I wondered what kind of weapons someone who couldn't work with iron would make, and promptly remembered the Bronze Age. But the Wilder would have to make some really good stuff to compete with steel, right? Unfortunately, my brothers didn't seem all that curious. After walking a bit more, we came across some kind of restaurant. The wall facing the street was made of glass, and there were tables both inside and outside. Fairies were fluttering around, grabbing pastries and other baked goods from shelves lining the walls, and delivering them to the tables. There was even a line to get in that stretched down a side street. York let out a low whistle.
That's not something you'll see me doing anytime soon, he said.
How come? Nash asked.
Everything I've heard and read indicates one should use caution and care when Wilder are offering treats, even in trade.
I had also heard some stories, but I thought it was specifically refusing the goods that was the issue. I nearly spoke up, then remembered that we weren't in my world anymore. Even though the Wilder here was similar to the fair folk back home, there were notable differences.
Why would you need to be curious? Nash asked. Are they poisoned or something? Sometimes, York nodded, though sometimes the treat is enchanted. I recall an account of a dwarf who stumbled upon a fairy grove. He was offered food and shelter and accepted it without a second thought. The fairies gave him cookies and tea, and when he drank them, his body began to twist and contort. He fled from the fairies and barely made it to the nearest village before his death, mangled beyond all recognition.
Ha! I recognize that tale,
a voice rang out from behind us. We turned and saw a very plump and androgynous fairy with a wide grin. His wings were flapping like a hummingbird's, giving the appearance that it was struggling to stay airborne. His skin was mottled, with green patches on its otherwise teal complexion. Its appearance made me think of a cherub who had grown up.
Pretty sure that story was about Nilrin's circle, the fairy laughed. A great prank, to be sure. Well, as long as you know the context. The dwarf was a criminal, a rapist, murderer, and thief. The reason he was wandering through the forest in the first place was because he was on the run from the law. Nilrin's the type that doesn't take kindly to criminals who come a-begging. All the cookies did was make the dwarf's outside look like his insides.
I see. Thank you for the additional context. York bowed a little.
No problem. Haven't heard anybody mention that in ages. You must be one of them scholarly types, right? What's your name?
You want my name? York asked with a slight smile.
I see I was right about you being a scholar. The fairy giggled. But nah, I just want to know it. I already got a name of my own. It's Kint.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Kint. I am York Outer. These are my brothers, Nash and Nick.
Nice to meet you too. York, Nash and Nick Alter, eh? I've heard that name before, haven't I?
Yes. Our clan is quite famous in the Unified Chiefdoms.
My last name's Smith, actually, I said. I'm adopted.
Well, yeah. I figured that when an orc calls an elf brother, something has to be going, hold on.
The fairy fluttered a little closer and looked me up and down.
You're not an elf.
Nope, I'm a human.
Yeah, I know. What you doing here?
Well, we're going to meet with the Summer Court, I replied hesitantly. Why'd you ask?
Oh, no real reason. Never mind me.
Kint shook his head and smiled.
I was just curious is all. So you're meeting with the court, eh? Do they know you're a human, or is it going to come as a surprise, do you think?
I'm sure they've been made aware, York said. Are you familiar with humans?
Well, not personally, no. I've had some really old stories, but it's been so long that none of them are coming to mind. Where are you from, Nick?
With a small sigh, I relayed the tale of how Nash found me in a dungeon. The fairy's expression betrayed empathy and concern, but also curiosity.
Where's the rest of your kind at? It asked,
curiosity winning the day. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, I'm the only human in this world. There were others, but they've probably been gone for a long time, I explained.
I see. I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Kint flew closer and patted me on the shoulder.
Thanks for telling me your tale, though. Oh, wait, shit. Guess that means I owe you one. Nah, don't argue. It's easier for all of us if we just roll with it. Is there anything I can help you with so I don't owe you anymore?
We are looking for the Marik Inn, York interjected, assuming there is one in this city.
Oh, sure there is. Just keep going down the main road. It's right next to the keep. There's no way to miss it. It's the gaudiest building in the city.
Kint chuckled.
Course, only the rich visitors stay there. Pretty much just wealthy merchants and nobles who aren't invited to stay in the keep. You lot don't strike me as their typical patrons.
We rescued the owner's nephew, Nash said. He set us up with free food and board.
Truly? What luck! Well, I personally wouldn't consider it luck, but you mortals love luxuries. I bet you have some higher ones looking after you.
Nash and York glanced at me, and I tried my best not to sigh. Looking after me is one way to describe it, I suppose. Stalking me is another.
Well, I'm guessing since you're looking for an inn, you probably just rolled into town and are feeling pretty tired, Kint said. I'll let you find your rest. Maybe we'll run into each other again, if it's fated. We can swap some more tales.
I hope we do, York bowed. May you find your way clear of turmoil.
And may you find your way in the first place, the fairy laughed. Hot damn, you really are a scholar. Haven't heard that parting in a long while. Anyway, have a good one.
You too,
Nash and I said, as the fairy fluttered, or sputtered, away.
Aren't Wilder able to control their shapes?
Nash asked, as we began to walk again.
I believe so, yes, York said. I'm fairly certain that I've read that the more powerful the Wilder, the more control they have over their physical form, though. That would imply that there are limits to what they can change about their bodies. I see.
As we got further into the city, we slowly stopped seeing shops and started seeing residential buildings. It was easy to tell the difference because most of the shops had their doors facing the main road, but the houses and apartments were positioned to open up into the side streets and alleys. Plus, there weren't as many people. The lack of people ended up having some pros and cons. On the upside, it was easier to keep up with York and Nash. On the downside, people could see more clearly, and almost all of them began to stare. I briefly considered making myself some prosthetic ears, so people would just think I was an elf, but gave up on the idea pretty quickly. Then the keep came into view, banishing all thoughts of trailing eyes from my mind. The wall was impressive, but the keep was in an entirely different league. Like the walls, it was made of jadeite. but the bricks at the keep seemed much larger than the ones that made up the walls, and as we got closer I realized that each and every one of the bricks were engraved and embossed with gold. "Are those glyphs?" I asked. "I believe so, yes," York replied. "I'm hardly an authority on the matter, but I would imagine that one would require some very powerful glyphs to keep any kind of building safe from the might of the Wilder." "Are they shield glyphs?" Nash asked. "No, shield glyphs would prevent all access to the keep. What we're seeing are probably fortification and anti-magic glyphs. It wouldn't surprise me if they had some shield glyphs ready to deploy, though." The houses and apartments suddenly turned into inns and taverns. The closer we got to the keep, the fancier these buildings became. Gold and silver trim began appearing more often and in more intricate designs, and I genuinely wondered how the Marfix could be considered gaudy in comparison. Then a building made entirely of gold bricks came into view. "Holy shit," I muttered.
"Gods damn, you really can't miss it," Nash commented. "It's almost worth the coin to stay elsewhere," York said, with an air of disgust. "No, it isn't. What's with you trying to spend all our coin?" "What good is it if we don't spend it?" "Money is always better to have than to spend," I said, parroting my father. "You'll get your chance to spend it because life is full of unexpected expenses." York slowly turned to look at me, as if I had just sheathed my dagger in his back. "Unexpected expenses," Nash laughed. "Like someone notching their sword by swinging it at a fucking brick wall?" "Precisely," I said. "Or someone notching their axe by swinging it at reinforced glass." Nash stopped in the middle of the road and treated me to a cold stare. "To be clear, you little shit, I was trying to rescue you," he said. "Plus, an axe has a much higher chance of making it through glass than a sword has of making it through brick." "What do you mean?" I asked with a hint of sarcasm, and while spreading my hands innocently. "I was just pointing out a potential unexpected expense." "I suppose insulting your future wife and having to make it up to her with an expensive gift could also be considered an unexpected expense." You'll get it with a wink. "Exactly." "Fuck you both," Nash growled. "The point is that we need to save our money, so we'll be staying in that goddamn golden eyesore. Let's go." York and I laughed as we continued walking toward the inn. 2 extra-large golden doors automatically opened for us and we entered the inn. Thankfully, the building was a lot less gaudy on the inside. The walls and floors were made of dark treated wood, and tasteful gold and silver inlays decorating each piece. There were no guests in the lobby, but there were a few staff making themselves useful and avoiding eye contact. "Hello, welcome to the Marfix Inn," the receptionist said as we approached. "How can I help you?" "We would like to book 3 rooms, please," York said. The receptionist smiled wryly enough that his eyes closed and tilted his head in a condescending manner. "I'm afraid our luxury accommodations are rather in demand, and as such they are quite expensive. 3 rooms will cost—" The receptionist paused as we held out our pendants. He bent toward us and studied the pendants. Once he verified their authenticity, he quickly changed his demeanor and bowed nervously. "My apologies, honored guests. Would you like adjacent rooms?" "Yes, please," York replied. "Understood. I beg your patience for a moment." The receptionist quickly turned to the desk beside him and pulled out a book. He then grabbed a pen, wrote in the book, and retrieved 3 keys from a cabinet next to the desk. "Here you are. Thank you for both your patience and your patronage, sirs," he said, with another nervous bow, offering the keys to us. "Your rooms are on the 1st floor. To find them, please proceed through that door and turn left. They are the first 3 doors on your right. The dining area is in the main foyer, and our other amenities are located in the west wing." "Much appreciated," Nash said, taking his key. Once York and I took our keys from him, the receptionist righted himself and smiled at us again. The smile faltered when his gaze fell on me, but his professionalism kept his expression from changing too much. I sighed softly, and we followed the receptionist's instructions to reach our rooms. "I'm beat," Nash said. "Think I'm going to skip dinner and head straight to bed." "Yes, that was quite the walk," York agreed. "Also, I find that I'm still quite full from the jerky this morning, so I'll be retiring as well." "All right, good night," I said, unlocking my door. "See you at breakfast." My brothers replied in kind as I stepped into my room. I closed the door behind me, popped my neck with a sigh, and began to take off my filthy gear and clothes.
Once my stuff was stowed in the cleaning slots, I found the bathroom and started the shower. As the water poured down my weary body, I began to wonder about what the next day would bring. There was a chance that this could be the end of the journey. So far, it had very much felt like I've been getting the runaround, but dare I hope that the court will have the answers that I need? Will I finally find out how I can get home, back to Cass and my family? If so, will I still have magic when I get there? My skills? Will I have to leave immediately, or will I get a chance to say a proper goodbye to everyone? I dried myself off and plopped into the comfortable bed with another sigh. Only tomorrow will tell.